Hi there, and welcome to Sip Sip Hooray, the podcast where the wine is chilled and the conversation is chill. In fact, we hope you have a chilled glass of Chardonnay with you because you're going to want it. Our guest today is Chardonnay royalty. Rob Lloyd is known as the king of California Chardonnay, and we're so thrilled to have him with us today. We are the two Marys who like to eat, drink, and be merry. I am Mary Babbitt.
And I am the other Mary, Mary Orland, and we are thrilled to have Rob with us today. So if you've ever had a glass of Rombauer Chardonnay, and honestly, who hasn't, or La Crema, you may not know the name behind the label, but you're going to get to know him today. Rob Lloyd has made wine with these very amazing wineries. He's also been the winemaker with Cellars and Handwritten, also in Napa Valley. And now he is proprietor, along with his wife Bonnie, of his own label, Lloyd Cellars and Prescription, which hopefully you have seen in the marketplace. And if not, you're going to want to go look for it after this podcast. So Rob, welcome to Sip Sip Hooray.
Happy to be here with you ladies.
We're so glad to have you, and I am enjoying a lovely glass of Lloyd Chardonnay, and it's just delicious. So thank you for making this for me. It's just so good. I always like to start off, Rob, with how you got to where you are today. And I know I was reading you went to UC Irvine, and I was thinking about that because you got an economics degree there. And I was wondering if you could rewind. What do you think when you were getting that economics degree, you're 20, 21 years old, what were you thinking you were going to do with that degree when you were an anteater way back when?
Back at Irvine, I was more interested in cute blondes. Luckily, I came to Napa and found one to my wife. But when I was in Irvine, I did a 5-year program because I was living on the sand in Newport Beach, and kind of knew that type of life wasn't going to get to last forever. But the economics degree was, I was looking at going into sales. My father was a CEO, and my family was not from Napa, so I was definitely not playing. When I was at Irvine, I had no idea that I'd get to actually do something this much fun for a lifetime.
So how did wine come into the picture?
Well, my mom, when I went to college, my mom and younger brother moved up to Napa. She used to manage the Napa Fairgrounds. And so I came up one summer. My best friend growing up in Central California, where I went to high school, his grandfather just happened to be Joe Valerga, that they owned a chain of grocery stores here in Napa. And so we worked in a grocery store one summer, and on our days off, I don't know if I can get in trouble for saying I had a fake ID back then, but we would go wine tasting, and I was just amazed. I was like, this is just such an incredible place, and it'd be fun to come back after I graduate and learn a little bit about wine before I get a real job.
I think we're probably past the statute of limitations on that fake ID, so no worries.
Definitely.
Oh, good.
So, your wine career started in tasting rooms. Am I right?
Yeah, I came up and I had the economics degree, and my mom knew someone that had just started working at Cake Bread, and they had a job opening part-time in the tasting room, and I loved Cake Bread Sauv Blanc. And so started there, and that day 2, they were complaining they needed night shift help. And since I was 22, I said I could do both, and did both. And that was really where I I had no idea what I was doing, but I sure had a lot of fun. And I really kind of started to find that I like the idea of making things almost better than selling things.
Terrific. And so at Cake Bread, they are known well for their Sauvignon Blanc, but also their Chardonnay. Did that have any influence on you?
I definitely liked their, Chardonnay quite a bit. Definitely, drank a lot of it over the years. But, it really was more, I was only there for about 4 months. They didn't have a full-time job. And I went over to Stag's Leap Wine Cellars, who I love Stag's Leap District Cabernets. That was really, I badgered the winemaking staff. Rick Aldine was the vineyard manager, and I made him take me out, and I just asked a million questions. And it was there that, while I was interviewing for a job selling passive electronic components, that I really don't even know what passive electronic components are, but I was going to sell them. But that was where, during an interview, someone said, "What are you doing now?" We spent 10 minutes talking about where you grow the grapes, when you pick, how you ferment, the temperature, everything. They said, "Well, why are you interviewing with me?" And I said, "I don't want to." And, basically hopped in my car and drove up to Davis, started badgering Roger Bolton into, please let me into this program.
Well, lucky for us that you chose that path.
Absolutely. Okay, so kind of give us the highlights. So it was cake bread, stag's leap, and then what came next? Was it La Crema?
Well, okay, after I had to leave Stag's Leap to go back to school full time, having a degree in economics and business management, didn't have many chemistry classes. So I spent about 2.5 years taking background chemistry classes while working at Stag's Leap, and then had to leave to go to school full time. So at Davis, I did an internship with Kent Rasmussen, which was great because it was a neat small winery and just a really nice man and family. And then upon graduating, I graduated the next day, got married to Bonnie, and we left on our honeymoon and came back to, Bonnie getting to learn what a crushed widow is.
Wait, you have to describe what is a crushed widow?
Oh, so, during the harvest, it's long hours and 7 days a week. And, that first job was at La Crema, and we were living in an apartment in Napa. So we spent, a month and a half on our honeymoon. We traveled throughout Europe, saw some friends that own wineries in Switzerland and France, and just, really had a nice time, spent every minute together. Then we come home, and for 2.5 months, I came home one night a week and was working kind of 15-hour days at La Crema during harvest. And so a crushed widow is, you kind of lose your husband or your wife for about 2 months during harvest.
Nice. Welcome to marriage, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And luckily, at every harvest, it seems to be getting a little easier and a little better and a little bit fewer hours. So, it's just at least I'm home every night.
That's nice. So after La Crema, where did you go next?
From La Crema, it was there about 2.5 years and really wanted to come back to Napa. And Rombauer was just starting to grow. And so they had a position as assistant winemaker, went there for almost 8 years and just kind of grew with them and had a really neat time. And I had worked with, some growers both at La Crema and at Rombauer. And so after about 8 years with Bonnie, having to listen to me complain, saying, I kind of want to do my own thing. She really kind of, shoved me out the door. And in 2008, we started Lloyd Cellars and started consulting for other wineries.
So was it scary to take that leap out of having a secure job with a very well-known winery and going out on your own?
My father thought I was a little crazy, but luckily he's known I was crazy my whole life. But it was Bonnie that really had that belief, and kind of us being able to do this. She'd always always kind of been an entrepreneur. She had started a dog walking, actually the second one in San Francisco, dog walking pet sitting business. So when we met, she already had her own business, and it was like, well, let's do this. We can do it. And I definitely wouldn't have. I'm not as risky as she is, but she was like, we can do this. And I'm glad that she shoved me out the door because it's worked out really well for us.
Well, launching your own label is not for the faint of heart. And you had the benefit of coming out with this really hard-earned and well-deserved reputation from Rombauer and the other places where you worked. What made you, how did you decide that, okay, we want to put our own signature on a wine or a winery? And what is that signature? How did you want to differentiate yourself from Rombauer, where you had become so, well, famous, for lack of a better word, for really crafting their taste, which is like so super duper popular?
Well, they're before me, Greg Graham was a winemaker there, and I think you had Solitude, that was a custom crush client at Rombauer. Those guys really kind of, I think pioneered that big, rich California style. And then, when I left, I'd worked with the San Giacomo family, both at La Crema and at Rombauer. And, those guys knew I was leaving before Kerner did. Hopefully I don't get the boys in trouble, but, it just, they were able to get me. I'd worked with so many different lots and knew kind of how I wanted to craft. My thought was I love the home ranch for the body, and Green Acres, that's a block very close, but it gives off more of a green apple, a little bit more tart. And I always thought, boy, if I could just combine these two, I think that I could make what I consider kind of a classic, perfect, big, rich California Chard. And I've always loved to drink big, rich California Chard, and some people don't. But I think if you got a guy making it that likes drinking it too, it's kind of like the chef that likes to eat his own food. Don't trust a skinny chef.
The tart flavor profile that you bring to it, I think that adds a nice balance. And do you feel like that's a signature thing of your wine?
Yeah, I mean, I want the big, rich California Chard, but it needs to have an acid balance. I mean, on the finish, I want that finish to leave you kind of wanting to take another sip. And we always joke about passing the bottle test, and that's, you and your wife get down to the last sip, and it's like, yeah, let's open one more. Let's have one more glass. We want to pass that bottle test, and we do.
I love that. So, I want to know how your winemaking style evolved beyond when you got to Lloyd Cellars. What was it that you were really able to pursue and do that is uniquely yours?
Well, I mean, that's the fun thing about wine, and that's why I fell in love with it is, again, where the grapes are grown, when you pick. I mean, the San Giacomo's do a neat tasting where, they'll have 4 wineries kind of in the same block, and you can try, and sometimes some of those pick dates are 3 weeks or a month, different. And so as the grapes continue to ripen, you get, different flavors, different sugar levels, which it lead to different, alcohol amounts. And then there's the barrels. So, really, when I left, I mean, Lloyd Chard, I do make it different than I've made any other Chardonnay. And it really is kind of what we love. But the beauty is every year presents different challenges, and that's what makes it so fun. I want a consistent style, but, I'm always kind of learning and always, kind of tweaking. You just never know how fast the ferment's going to go, how fast, the secondary malolactic fermentation is going to go. So you're always kind of tweaking and playing, and I don't get bored. For me, I love that. I mean, that's really why I fell in love with winemaking.
Oh, that's terrific. So, Rob, most winemakers, or many of them anyway, really stake their reputations on red wines, but you really have staked your reputation on white wine. And I love that because I actually prefer white wines over reds if it's just up to me. That's when I'm reaching for first. And I'd love to hear your opinion on kind of where the importance of white wine, especially in California.
I mean, white wine to me just screams summer, relaxing, warm weather. And that's kind of what California is. I mean, I've grown up all over California and loved everywhere. Definitely loved Napa the most. But, white wine definitely, has its, kind of own style, own flavors. And, I make a lot, actually, it's funny, I make a lot more red wines than I do whites, but, over the years, between, the Jessup and handwritten Sauv Blancs or, the Lloyd Chard, I definitely have gotten to be known more for a white wine guy. So it is pretty funny, but it's definitely true. And I embrace it. I mean, normally, I'm going to have a friend over tonight and we'll start out with a Lloyd Chard and we'll probably move into a little bit of Pinot also.
Yeah, one of your wines under the Lloyd label is a Pinot Noir. Tell us why you decided to go with that varietal as something that you wanted to showcase with Lloyd.
I think it goes back to someone asking Warren Winiarski at Stag's Leap, why you planted Cabernet. And he said, well, it's what I like to drink. And if, I can't sell it, I'm going to have to drink it. And so, and I love Pinots. And, I make Carneros Pinots for other people, but, I really love Santa Rita Hills Pinot, and that's where we make ours. I mean, I needed to have, we did a 2 vintages of Lloyd Chard before we made a Pinot, with me trying to find a site that I thought worked. And, I really love the Santa Rita Pinots. You get that kind of spicy, brambly flavor, and it makes a little bit bigger, darker wine. Mm-hmm. I needed something to stand up to, our giant, rich California Chard for Lloyd.
It's outstanding. I really, really enjoyed the Lloyd Pinot that I tasted. It was so darn good.
It's a perfect partnership with wine. I love both of the styles. But then when we talk about prescription, you've also got Chardonnay there, but you are doing Cabernet Sauvignon under the prescription label.
Yeah, I've worked with some Cabernet vineyards I've liked a lot, and there's one particular up in Alexander Valley that I really like, and it was just a perfect, kind of foil to go along with the Chardonnay that we make under prescription. And we're trying to make those wines at a little bit lower price point, so that we can make you a Monday through Thursday wine, and then the Lloyd is the Friday, Saturday wines.
I like that. In fact, I was just going to ask you, how would you describe the differences between these two brands that you're doing? So your weekday wine is prescription, and tell me about that. Let's say just do a flavor comparison between the prescription Chardonnay and the Lloyd Chardonnay.
So the prescription Chardonnay are grapes grown by James Reamer up in Clarksburg, and when we're picking those, we're picking them at a little bit less bricks or sugar level, and they're fermented in stainless steel, with some oak adjunct. So we're really kind of trying to show off that really pretty bright fruit, and we're not it's a big Chardonnay for that style, but it's not as big as the Lloyd. The Lloyd's all barrel fermented in special little cold rooms, and that being able to ferment in the barrels, you get that micro oxygenation. It just really kind of fattens up the wine. So they're different, but you definitely can tell it's kind of the same goofy blonde guy making the wines.
Well, speaking of goofy, I think your prescription labels are super fun, and I'd like to know the inspiration behind them. Obviously, prescription, to me, you're referring to a medical prescription you might get at a pharmacy. And I love that on the label it says, "Take two and call us in the morning."
Yep. Yeah, prescription was, my wife and I actually met. The first thing I asked her was, I'm making a Jack and Coke for myself. Would you like one? So we both happen to like whiskey. And so prescription was the name that we were going to use for doing a whiskey. When we wanted to do another label for Lloyd at a different price point, really, I just wanted to work with James again, the grower that I'd worked with for years and really liked. And another term for prescription is recipe. And it used to drive me crazy when people were like, well, do you know the recipe of La Crema? Do you know the recipe of, Rombauer? Do you know the recipe of this winery? And, there really isn't a recipe. There's always a style, but that's where the name came from. It's, kind of, being known for a certain style of Chardonnay. And that's what we were going to do. And then, once we kind of had the prescription, we definitely started, having fun with the label. And Bon was a part of working on the label with Christian. That's the label designer that we used. And I think the two of them, really did a great job on the label.
Super fun. And might we see a whiskey label sometime in the future?
If Bonnie has any say, yes.
I love that she's the
Great.
one that is the real adventurous spirit and pushes you. What a nice partnership the two of you have.
It's been a very, very fun partnership, and I got very lucky, got to marry my best friend, and even luckier that she's very cute. So it's fun.
Bonnie, I hope you're listening and loving this. Hey, let's talk about the last year. Not that, I think everyone kind of wants to forget the past year of COVID and move on, but how did it impact you guys and what you're doing, both with Lloyd and prescription? Was this a forgettable year? Did it end up being a good year? How did COVID impact you guys, and how did you respond to it?
I think we're lucky, and we're a 3-tier brand, so all the wines are out and being distributed. And even though in California about 40% of Lloyd is sold to restaurants, we sold more wine in 2020 than in 2019. So it's I definitely feel fortunate. We definitely are a little family brand because it's Bonnie and I, and we have someone doing sales for us, and he just happens to be my fraternity buddy from UC Irvine that is also our youngest daughter Arden's godfather. So he's been out, and for the first time he wasn't traveling, but he's done a very good job and continue to make sure that that the wines were getting in front of people, and we were able to sell more wine than the year before.
That's fantastic. And you mentioned one daughter. Now you have two daughters. Is that correct?
Yes, Grace is our oldest, 19, and Arden is our youngest at 16. And have another, blonde female dog named Belle. So it's me and the girls in the house.
I love it. I love it. That's great. And you think that they might want to go into the wine business, follow in your footsteps?
I'll be curious. I was very fortunate. My father, played professional basketball. I was an All-American in college. I didn't like basketball, and I was very fortunate. My father didn't, push me into it. I was a swimmer in water polo, and I kind of have the same idea with our girls. I never want to push them, but it'll be fun to see. They've grown up with the wine business. They've grown up, with their dad having a lot of fun. They both, have grown up being able to have a little finger taste of wine, and it's fun to see. My oldest Grace, I remember. Since we're doing a podcast, we've got some time. But my oldest Grace, I took her up for a weekend tasting when I was at Rombauer, and there was 8 women that were probably about mid-30s, and they said, "Well, how do you know what wine tastes like?" And so I handed a barrel sample to Grace and said, "Grace, smell this and tell me what you think." She said that it smells like apples and popcorn and pears and pineapples, and one of the women in the back swore, and I said, "Hey, I got my 5-year-old daughter here," and she said, "Yeah, but your 5-year-old knows more about wine than I do." So I'll be curious to see what they do, but as of right now, we're just trying to get them through high school and find a great college for them to go to.
Sure. Well, since you were at Rombauer, I have to ask you about this. A good friend of mine texted me last night about he had just gone out to dinner and ordered wine. He said, "And I know you're going to, give me grief about the wine I ordered, but I did it. I got Rombauer. I love the big California Chardonnay. I love that it's called Cougar Juice." And I just want to know what you think and how you feel when you hear people say it's Cougar Juice.
Well, Richie, who's a friend and he's the winemaker there for many years now after I left. He does a great job, and that is, I'm not going to get myself in any trouble describing what Cougar Juice is, but I still the Danville Crack. That was the one that probably made me laugh.
Oh, I hadn't heard that one.
I like that.
That was a woman called me. And or actually, she didn't call me. A wine shop called and said that this woman is crying. And I said, "I'm sorry, why is she crying?" And he said, "Because she promised her guests that they'd have Rombauer Chard and Silver Oak Cabernet, and we're sold out. Can you help?" And I said, "We're sold out. I don't know. Why are you calling me?" I'm, at the time, I think I was the assistant winemaker. They said, "Well, what are you putting in this? Are you putting crack cocaine in here? I mean, this woman is crying."
Oh my
And
gosh.
he held the phone, and she was honestly sobbing. And
No way.
Yeah, so that was the first time the Danville Crack was.
Nice.
He literally said that, and I went up to Kerner's house and asked if she could have 2 cases from his own personal collection, because she wouldn't stop crying at the store.
Oh my word. That's amazing.
And he was the founder, who you're talking about, right?
Yes, yeah, Kerner Rombauer, really a nice man. He passed away a few years ago, unfortunately.
Wow. So Rob, I think I heard somewhere that you might drive a car. Your love of Chardonnay goes as far as your automobiles even. You drive a car with a license plate, I want to say Chard-powered?
Yeah, we actually have a 10-person van that we use to kind of take people around, and even to take them up to Jessup and Handwritten. And the Chard-powered was from a friend that when we were 16 years old, he decided to put a license plate frame that said Coors Power. And about a month later, he lost his license because he was Coors Powered. But so it was kind of an homage to him. I mean, not the smartest thing back then, but I think we always look back to kind of, when we were younger and kind of laugh at ourselves. So Chard Powered was us laughing at each other being 16.
That's too
a little
funny.
wink to the Coors Power.
Exactly.
I love that.
Now, has your Chard-powered van been pulled over by any chance?
Luckily, no, but luckily also we have 2 young boys that are sons of some of our friends that, and the 2 of them have them working a lot to harvest for us, kind of learning the wine business. So when they're not, up in Jessup or Handwritten tasting room on the weekends or working for me at the winery, they're driving the van.
Love it. That's such a funny story. Thanks for that. Chard-powered.
I love it.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about, Rob, is I know that you and Bonnie are music fans and have managed to kind of weave some love of music into what you're doing in terms of marketing and how you support music. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? And also, I guess you, like me, are probably hoping that we get back to some live music this summer and fall.
Oh yes, yeah. Bon and I, we were a part of the first Bottle Rock, and we've been a part of it ever since. With Joel Quigley that does marketing for us. He years ago got us to be a part of Muse Expo, which is just wonderful. It's down in LA. It helps emerging artists being able from around the world being able to kind of really find buyers. And I grew up with my stepfather, John Lynn, that he was a musician. He still to this day manages small theaters. So I got to grow up, being a part of music. And so, it's just being able to, make wine and get to be with other kind of artists and musicians. It just really, it's just a neat life.
It is. Okay, what music do you most like to blast in the cellar?
It's pretty funny. I had somebody ask about conversion rate for fermentation, and I told him that the reason that our rates seem to be so high is because we always crank AC/DC during harvest. So definitely, kind of an old rocker. It's probably the band I've seen the most. But I've really grown up with a lot of different types of music. But rock and roll is still definitely my first love. As I'm sitting here looking at a picture, of Led Zeppelin.
Nice. Well, when I pour my next glass of Lloyd Chardonnay, I'm going to turn on the AC/DC and blast it. So, Rob, you've also been involved not just with music, but with art, especially through Jessup Cellars. And the way I got to know you was through an event I did with you and Jessup surrounding art. But I did wine and perfume pairings. And I remember coming to do a presentation to you and the staff at Jessup about these pairings, and I was a little bit nervous, like, oh my gosh, Rob Lloyd, what's he going to think? Is he going to think this is crazy? But I was so delighted that you were totally open to it and enthusiastic. So I want to thank you for that. It's just another form of expression, I guess, like art, music, perfume, and wine.
Well, most of taste is through olfactory smell. So, and what you found out was I really was crazy. So it worked out perfect between the two of us.
I love it.
Thank goodness for that. I was so relieved.
Oh, that's funny. Hey, Rob, I know that you guys are with an eye towards summer and hopefully things lightening up and people getting back to normal and stuff. And you mentioned earlier that last year was a busy year for you guys, but I know you guys have a Beat the Heat promotion that maybe you could tell us a little bit about. I think the idea is to encourage people to order wines before summer heat causes a shipping issue. Can you explain that shipping issue that happens with, hot temperatures and trying to send wine, to ship wine?
Yeah, I mean, it really is just kind of reminding people to, before it starts to get into the 90s and hundreds, it's good to ship the wine. We can ship, overnight, 2 day, but wine still is a food product. I go back to an old story when I was at Stag's Leap and someone called me up and said, I waited. You told me to wait 5 to 10 years to drink this wine and said it'd be great and it tastes terrible. And I said, I'm sorry. Well, what wine? He said, Cask 23. I said, well, it's a fantastic wine. I said, well, where have you been aging it? He said, it's in my garage. And I said, where do you live? He said, Phoenix.
Oh my God.
And my next question, I was only 23, so I think this is how I got away with it. I said, where's your milk? And he said, it's in the refrigerator. I said, how much did you pay for that milk? He said, $2. And I said, do you see where I'm going with this? you paid $100 for that Cabernet that you just aged in your garage. So
Oh my
wine,
gosh.
I mean, it is alcohol and it can withstand, but the temperature fluctuations really affect the wine, especially even in your, house. If the temperature is going up and down, it's really going to age that wine fast. So, the beat the heat is, hey, order some wine before it gets too hot out, because, there's certain parts of, the year where, I mean, we almost can't ship because it's too hot. We have to wait for that heat wave to pass.
Sure. And what our listeners might not realize is that maybe they've ordered wine during the summer, and when they get it, the cork might have been popping out of the bottle a little bit, or even broken the foil. Why does that happen?
I mean, liquid, it expands when it gets heated. And so, it will expand and actually push through the cork. And that's kind of, almost the same thing as seeing curdles in your milk. That's not a good sign.
So the lesson of all this is you definitely want to you want to treat your wine as good as or better than your milk.
Yes.
At least.
Yes. And it'll make you a lot happier too.
This is true. As a child, I hated milk, and I love wine now. So.
Well, there you go. Hey, Rob, before we let you go, give us an update on what's happening right now at Lloyd Cellars and Prescription. What are you guys up to these days? Are you busy in the vineyards? Is it quiet? What's going on?
Oh, I mean, the vineyard, this is so much fun now. We have, bud break is just starting. So, here we go again with the cycle. We didn't have too much rain this winter, so I think we're going to have a little bit smaller harvest, but it's just kind of fun. We just 2 weeks ago finished up bottling a bunch of Jessup Sauv Blanc and some of the Zinfandels, and we're going to be gearing up. I just this morning was tasting the 2020 Lloyd Chard, and we don't have as much. The harvest was down by about a third, but man, what we have is tasting fantastic. And another perk of the job, at 9 this morning, I was barrel tasting Chardonnays to see how they're doing. So my life isn't too bad.
It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it.
I put my hand up quickly.
So, Rob, for our listeners, how can they find your wines? Where can we find Lloyd and Prescription wines?
Lloyd and Prescription are definitely available online. We're happy to ship you some. And, both wines are available. We're distributed, I think, in about 30 different states now. So the easiest is just go online, be able to tell you kind of where you can find it, or if not, we'll ship you some.
I'm seeing them everywhere, from my favorite supermarket to Total Wine. I keep seeing them, and it makes me so happy because I'm a big fan of yours, Rob, and I wish you continued success. So it's fun to see your wines on the shelf.
Well, we're happy to see our wines on the shelf too, and we're even happier when people are drinking.
Absolutely, because they're not, they don't do anybody good on the shelf. They need to be on the table, uncorked, and in the glass.
In fact, I've got a Lloyd Chardonnay sitting here looking at me right now that might get popped fairly soon.
All right, well, get to it.
We need to let you go so you can do that. We don't want to hold you back.
Well, thank you, Mary and Mary.
It's been a total pleasure, Rob. Thanks so much. So fun getting to chat with you again. Give our best to Bonnie and the girls, including your pup. And thank you again for being with us. Cheers to you, Rob, and sip, sip, hooray.
Sip, sip, hooray, Rob.
Cheers, ladies.
So, Mary B., I have just got to go to my refrigerator right now, get that bottle of Lloyd Chardonnay, pop the cork. I probably should have been drinking it while we were doing this, but I was trying to be good.
Oh, and you know me, I'm never good. So I've been enjoying my wine the entire time, the Lloyd Chardonnay. And honestly, it is delicious. And I think everyone could tell from our conversation, Rob is just a truly nice and down-to-earth guy who has such a fun-loving spirit. And darned if he doesn't make a really good Chardonnay. So you will probably see it in your local stores. We recommend you give it a try and see what you think. Prescription is also his.
Sure. And, we were talking about this Beat the Heat campaign that they're doing for the month of April. And it's something you'll see all over Instagram. And since you're listening to our podcast, Rob has been generous with a discount code for our listeners. So if you go to lloydcellars.com and you use the promo code #BeatTheHeat, then you will get their Instagram friends Wine Club member 10% off discount on any purchase through the end of the month through April 30th, 2021. But if you go for it and get at least a case, 12 bottles, then they'll give you $50 discount off of shipping, which is really awesome. Because, for me, when I'm buying wine online, it's like you see the shipping cost. This is one thing, one barrier they're taking away from you. They're making it a little bit easier on your pocketbook. So again, go to lloydcellars.com, #BeatTheHeat.
Absolutely. And as we said earlier, you don't want to wait on those wines that you might want to drink when the weather gets warm. Don't wait because you can't ship them later. So it's certainly a delicious wine, and Beat the Heat, #BeatTheHeat is a way to save some money on it. So again, our thanks to Rob Lloyd for joining us on Sip Sip Hooray, and also thanks to you. We're so grateful you're here with us, and we hope if you like this podcast, you share it with your friends and tell them about us. You can find us on social media. We are Sip Sip Hooray Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and we would love to hear from you and love to interact with you about future show ideas or your reactions to the stuff we've done.
And you can also see more information about this show and past episodes of Sip Sip Hooray at our website, sipsiphoooraypodcast.com. And, we also want you to subscribe to our podcast wherever you do listen to podcasts, because we've got a lot of great shows coming up and you don't want to miss a single one.
Our goal is to find the nicest, most interesting people making wine or in the wine business and bring their stories to you. So thanks for coming along for the ride. And Mary Orland, I'm going to get back to my Lloyd Chardonnay and have a nice evening, I think.
And Mary B., I'm going to get started on my evening. It's 5 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Hey, Mary Orland, sip, sip, hooray.
Cheers.
Cheers.